Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he's a Fox News contributor, and our very own Trey Yanks just spoke to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Let's play a clip here.
Unfortunately, the hardliners with an apocalyptic vision of the future have the ultimate power in that country. That tension has always existed there, always. I think it's pronounced. Now that you have a supreme leader whose credibility is still untested, whose access is questionable, who has not been seen visibly, publicly, has not spoken, we have not heard his voice. So I think that creates tension in the system as well.
Sir, are we moving from a theocratic regime to a military dictatorship in Iran? And if that's the case, does our negotiating tactics change?
Well, good morning, Dana. Look, we've always had a military regime in Iran. They had top cover from the Ayatollah, who put a theocratic wrapper around a set of military hardliners. It's always been a regime that has used their military power, their increasing missile capability, their efforts to get a nuclear weapon. That was their tool for interacting with the world. And you add to that the proxies that they had in Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and in Yemen and all around the region. And that it's been a military regime for 47 years. What we're seeing now is that the river has lowered because of what President Trump has done, and the rocks are now appearing. Time is, in fact, on our side. President Trump said it'll end very soon. You know, a couple months after 47 years of conflict would actually be very soon. And this economic blockade is absolutely working. It will deliver economic hardship for the regime, where they'll have to make difficult decisions. And there will come a point where they will have to make a really difficult decision about whether to continue to destroy their own nation or to give the United States the basic things we've asked for, which is nothing more than to become a normal country, Dana.
And financial starvation can take a while. President Trump spoke about Iran and the possibility of them running out of oil. Watch here.
When you have, lines of vast amounts of oil pouring through your system, if for any reason that line is closed because you can't continue to put it into containers or ships, which has happened to them, they have no ships because of the blockade. What happens is that line explodes from within. So I think they're under pressure, but I don't consider it under pressure.
What do you think about that timetable?
Yes, I think that timetable is likely pretty close. But Dana, you've seen this. We've all been through this. We don't know timelines. Timelines are incredibly difficult to predict. But direction is not difficult to predict. The family members of the army is going to stop having food. They'll stop having water. The realities of the fact that the strait is closed will begin to impose hardship on everyone throughout the entire country, from the elites to the poorest person inside of Iran. You know, the two things. When we saw them come back with a counteroffer, it shouldn't surprise us that counteroffer, Dana, involved reopening the strait, the central thing that they need. They need the strait open desperately. The United States and the West can survive a few more weeks with economic difficulty of getting product through that strait. We need to just be sufficiently patient. President Trump told a reporter, hey, don't rush me. I think that's precisely right. Iran is out of tools of leverage. They've played their most important card, the Strait of Hormuz. Over time, we will get it reopened, and the hardship will fall to them until such time as they make a decision that says, no, we're just not going to build nuclear weapons that threaten the world.
The UN ambassador, I believe, like at any moment now, is going to be having a press conference with, I think, 60 nations, especially those in the region, who are saying this has got to stop. Apparently, in the Iranians' new offer, they have said, let's talk about all of these other things, but take the nuclear issue off the table for now. Would you go for that?
No, I certainly would not, nor do I think President Trump will. That is the central thesis of the actions that President Trump took. You have to stop. This is what multiple presidents failed at. You know, I just saw the clip from former Deputy Secretary Wendy Sherman. Mm-hmm. She's the one who got us into this mess, for goodness sake. Wendy Sherman was the one who bent over and said, you can absolutely have billions of dollars in wealth and create a nuclear weapons program, and put a flimsy deal on the table that could not possibly have stopped that very nuclear weapons program. So I think Ambassador Walz, President Trump, Secretary Rubio all have it right. The nuclear program is the heartbeat of the Iranian military effort, and we have to ensure that that never happens inside of Iran.
All right, Mike Pompeo, we will pay attention to what happens today as we get the week going on a Monday. Thank you for being with us.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Bless you.
Thank you.